Hello, everyone. This is Soma Chakrabarti, and I'm moderator of this closing ceremony for the virtual international conference on women in STEM in the time of pandemic. It is hosted by UNITAR, IFES, and GDC. I have been moderating all the sessions since it started, the opening ceremony, the four regional sessions, and this one, and I'm learning a lot. And I think I have covered a really good span of world time zones. So that's wonderful. I work for ANSYS, the global leader in engineering simulation, but I'm the vice president of IFES. So in that role, I am actually working with all of you today. There have been 5 sessions already. This is the last session. So we want to learn something from you and want to take with us as we end this wonderful conference. If there is a question, this is to attendees, if you have a question, please do write in the question answer box of GoToWebinar, and we will answer these questions at the end. If we have time, we will certainly answer. We have tried to answer all the questions in previous panels, but we have a wonderful ensemble of panelists, I would say. And to start, I will introduce the first panelist, but we have Einar Bjørgo, have I pronounced it correctly? I hope so. Elizabeth Croft and Hans Hoyer. And first, Einar will be speaking. Einar Bjørgo is the director of the Division of Satellite Analysis and Applied Research at the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, or UNITAR. In that capacity, he oversees the Operational Satellite Applications Program, UNOSAT, and strategic implementation of the 2030 Agenda Unit. Einar, may we have some thoughts from you on this women in STEM during the pandemic?
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for being invited to this event. I followed the opening ceremony earlier today, and I think it was really much food for thought. From my side, we work very operational. So the women we have in the team are basically specialists in let's say in geographic information management and whatever goes around in that with that kind of tools, including satellite imagery analysis, but also mapping, various types of geospatial analysis. UNOSAT supports a wide range of entities. And in doing so, it is extremely important, of course, to realize that many of the vulnerable population that we are supporting are women and children and the elderly, typically following natural disasters, and even in conflict situation as well. So having that backdrop, I think it's important to realize as well when we look at this. Now, how does our colleagues typically work, and especially in times of the pandemic? What we learned early on was that, fortunately, the way we work using remote sensing satellite imagery, we can continue to doing that as there was no pandemic almost. So for us, it worked very well. However, what we learned as well was the need for people to feel secure and safe. And that is also why we decided quite early on that people could basically work from wherever they wanted. If you wanted to stay in Geneva or in our Bangkok office, they were welcome to do so. But we really tried to make sure that people would feel safe, and including, of course, also their mental health. And we therefore allowed people to work, as I said, it could be from home, it can be from their home country, going back to their family, etc. So I think this was a formula that actually worked fairly well. Now, in terms of again our the women in STEM, what we have a challenge with, which I want to be open about, is that we have quite a few women that are excellent analysts. But where we have to be better, I think, especially in the UN, is to be able to promote these women. Already it can be challenging if you have a STEM background to sort of go up in the ranks in the UN system, because it's not a traditional education for you to be. That is fortunately changing, but I think if we are to be successful, we have to very, very actively promote women in order to be able to have a career in the UN system. So I think it's and that is, I think, also quite challenging for us. We want to do this, but these things takes time. And it is important for us to be as supportive as possible, of course, but we do realize that it is not always easy when there are relatively few women with technical STEM educations that are higher up in the system that can serve as mentors. So I think that is, one of the challenges. But that said, it is changing, and we have to change this. And so I think this is one of the elements that we are able to do something about little by little. Another aspect, I think, would be also to make sure that we create networks. I think that was also the discussion just before this session. Be able to create networks where women can support each other also in STEM. There are many networks in other kind of let's say professions that are doing this quite successfully, and I'm sure it's also happening in STEM, but I think we need to be even more supportive in this regards. So I think that is just some thoughts from my end in this, and I would just looking forward to see also what the other colleagues are saying about this. But I would like also, if you just play a short 2-minute video, just so you can hear it from my colleagues themselves.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think Aliki will play it.
Hi everyone, my name is Aisha Sheldon and I'm a geospatial analyst with the UNOSAT team in Geneva.
My name is Solange Uera and I'm a geospatial analyst at UNOSAT.
Hello everyone, my name is Belo, a trainee in UNOSAT.
I'm Ida, I'm a trainee at UNOSAT, and for the last 6 months I've been working with the rapid mapping team.
Hello everyone, my name is Nisharat. I am a trainee in UNOSAT Bangkok office.
My name is Suvanan. I'm GIS Animal Sensing Analyst at UNOSAT Bangkok office.
I always want to explore more about our Earth, not only via visiting its places, but also understanding it in a scientific way.
I love to explore the new things, and I want to help people and support them to have a better life.
I always knew I wanted to study geospatial science. I was really into geography, science and technology, and those things combined is pretty much what geospatial science is.
I definitely think that the geographical information technology empower us, since it gives us the possibility to look at common solutions to common problems.
GIS, geospatial information technology, can be used to gather information and visualize issues faced by women and girls, and that is key information in taking more informed and unbiased decisions.
I'm really excited for the future of geospatial science and to be a woman in geospatial science.
Happy International Women's Day.
This is lovely.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Einar, for showing this.
No, thanks to my colleagues. They deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. They have done a good job, and not just the people who spoke, but also the people who were behind the camera and just or they may have worked from home and got themselves captured. So thank you so much, and thank you for sharing what UNICEF does and um, mm, uh, but how we can encourage more women to work in these areas. I think I will move to now uh, Dr. Elizabeth Croft from Monash University. Um, uh, and could you tell us your thoughts about um, this women in STEAM uh, in the time of pandemic? What is your experience and what are your thoughts?
Thank you very much, Soma. As you mentioned, I'm Elizabeth Croft. I am the Dean of Engineering at Monash University in Melbourne, Australia. As I begin, it is very important that I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I stand here, which is the people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I do this to recognize the historical, current, and future importance of Australia's First People. We have come together today to talk about the challenges of last year and how they have impacted women. And I particularly want to focus on parents. In Melbourne, we have had 3 lockdowns with varying restrictions. And the most challenging time was the 111-day lockdown, when schools and early childhood centers were only available to parents who had a permit from their employer identifying them as a key worker. Now, at that time, we were still teaching and we were still researching. In fact, our staff were working on innovations that were directly applicable to the COVID-19 response. We were developing 20-minute blood tests to detect COVID-19, personal protective equipment that could be manufactured out of domestic supplies, given the disruption in the global supply chains, and test kits for COVID in the sewage. And even earlier on, we were working on ventilator splitting and publishing how that could be done safely. Along with this, with our immediate jump to online teaching, which happened in March at the beginning of our semester, our staff had found their workload doubled or tripled with the urgency of the research and the complexity of their teaching highly accelerated. But our working parents, our moms and our dads cannot do this demanding work while changing nappies and meeting the needs of toddlers and young learners. So one of our first priorities was to ensure that the parents doing this critical work had access to appropriate access to relevant childcare. And this is not a new discovery. It's been proven many times. Access to childcare is fundamental to the success of working parents. The concept of achievement relative to opportunity has been around for a while, but in 2020, I think it really put it into perspective for a much broader swath of our workforce. We have run workshops to help our staff identify what relative to opportunity means after last year and what it means going forward, how to recognize and articulate the challenges they have faced so that these challenges do not become a permanent sticking point for their future progression. I am actually quite hopeful that this broadening will have a lasting positive impact on equity in our industry and academia. I think 2020 catapulted relative to opportunity from being a quasi-women's issue to making it mainstream. People, especially our male colleagues, who may have previously struggled to get it, they now get it. They have lived experience about how family responsibilities disrupt academic advancement and endeavors. Sure, I would have been glad to get to this point without a pandemic, but I'm glad that we got there. So yes, as I have here at Monash as Dean of Engineering, I have about 8,000 students and 500 staff from across campuses in 3 countries. With the majority of our workforce working from home, and colleagues in Malaysia are still working from home, we had to completely overhaul our communications. So we implemented regular online meetings to help us come together as we are physically apart, to recognize and celebrate our successes. And this was absolutely critical, to see each other, to share the news. And it was important for mental health and important to remember our lives and successes outside of COVID-19. So it was really an interesting time. And I really do remember looking at that screen full of all of our staff and seeing moms and dads with kids running behind them. And just going, okay, now we all see the issue. Another major thing for me during this time has been to ensure that we keep our commitments and not allow the immediacy of the pandemic to push back the advances we have made in gender equality. Gender balanced shortlists ensure that we have diverse candidates. And because of this commitment, we have been able to hire 50% women academics over the past 3 years. We continue to do that despite, there is no excuse not to do that, not even a global pandemic. We also continue to support parental leaves with postdoc support despite the financial constraints, because these are the things that we must invest in. And I do not want to pretend that it was a walk in the park. As I said, I cannot forget the faces of my staff with meetings with babies actually crawling over them and the kids running in the background. Another challenge, of course, is our closed borders. We're a top 100 engineering faculty, and we're used to recruiting academics and students from around the world, and that is very hard to do when your borders are shut. We are doing everything we can online, but it continues to be a challenge. Although, of course, right now, it's wonderful. It's actually quite a privilege to be in Melbourne. I have no chance of getting COVID. I can go to a restaurant, I can go to a movie, I can go have breakfast with people. It is very good. And so we have been fortunate that because of the closure of our borders, we have been able to avoid the spread of the disease, which means that we can redouble our efforts to focus on the important challenges, including systemic disadvantage and gender equality. So as we look forward, through 2021 and 2022, we need to be absolutely vigilant to ensure that the gender equity gains realized over the past decade are maintained.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. You have done a lot for the advancement of women in engineering and participation in engineering, and we all know about it. And your subject area has been industrial robotics and human-robot interaction, so on. Did you see any change in women participation in these areas during the pandemic, or was it the same through online communication?
I've actually seen more women participating because of the online nature of the conference. And I think the combination of a real understanding in the robotics community that males are not okay, that we need to have gender balanced panels, and we need to hear from women as well as men, plus the realization that online can work has meant that I have seen many more presentations by women at all stages of their career. So I think that has been a really fantastic gain from the pandemic. My big concern is, let's make sure we don't roll back when it's over. How are we, if we've made this gain, how are we going to make sure that we hang on to it? Because the easiest thing to do is just to slide back into what we're used to. I have great hope, and we're pushing very hard for us to think about how we can make sure that that inclusion happens. And it's not only women, I would say it's to make sure that people from all parts of the world, from communities that are where the travel is much more difficult, that we can use the technology that we have developed as engineers to push on equality. And I do think that this is a huge opportunity for us right now.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And I'm glad that the participation is more during this time, participation of women. But as you said, we have to sustain that. And that's the tough part, that when we come back to our new normal, I would say. So with that, I think it's the final words, I think, before we end the conference. I would like to hear from Hans Hoyer. Dr. Hans Jürgen Hoyer, he is the Executive Secretary of the Global Engineering Deans Council, that is GEDC, and the Secretary General of the International Federation of Engineering Education Societies, IFES. And he has held and still is holding many positions, but I think most importantly, he has been a champion of women in STEM. And that is how we all have, Elizabeth and I both participated in this book, Rising to the Top, and it has a second volume and so on. Hans, tell us your thoughts on this conference, and how did you come up with, and what are the key takeaways from this?
Well, Soma, thank you very much. Elizabeth, wonderful to see you. You're far away. Your colleague here, very nice, Einar, to meet you here, per se. First of all, what I want to do is, I've been together with Soma and Aliki and Sama also, and Jean of UNITAR in this journey over the last 8.5 hours. And this is a key expression in terms of who IFES and GDC is. We are a global community that brings awesome leaders of all experiences, multicultural, linguistic, international, together. And as I was building the relationship with Mihoko Kumamoto of UNITAR, we clicked, because she has a vision, and as Einar said, and also Michael Adala indicated, deep interest by UNITAR, not only the video you just shared with us, the young leaders there per se, but also, and we found a connection for UNITAR to become part of IFES and GDC, and which UNITAR is supporting the publication of our 4th edition of Rising to the Top, that Soma just mentioned per se. The first and second one, where both Elizabeth and Soma contributed to, for example, written by 52 women engineering leaders, awesome. Many of them friends of mine and colleagues that have inspired me, from whom I learn continually. And now working very dynamic women and leaders in India and in Africa. They're over 65 and will be coming out for the next 2 or 3. And I'm very happy UNITAR, my colleagues, my friends in UNITAR. And I see this experience today, working closely with Soma and Aliki and my other friends, that we can take some other steps together. For example, I was so inspired at so many different ways that I could share with you. Of course, we have very limited time. I just want to make a couple of comments. One of the broad discussions, and as you know, I've lived in over 20 countries and traveled, you know, all 6 continents all my life per se, is this was not just a discussion as engineers, but as human beings that talked about the socioeconomic, the emotional issues that is impacting women, children, men during this incredible crisis. It's impacting us in ways, all of us per se. And it's and for us, and working in partnership with UNITAR to create this as part of the Global Engineering Day for women, for us to reflect on that. A couple of things. As a leader who's been working for years throughout the globe, that inspired me. And a few words that I wrote in just a couple of sentences is the goal of our book was for a new generation of female engineer leaders to be inspired by their peers. The youngsters. For example, a young woman just in the webinar before her, and somebody indicated, I think it was you, Soma, a girl with passion becomes a woman with vision. And per se, to the extent that the young generation of women, for example, can learn from, listen to both of you who are a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, Elizabeth and Soma, I think is very, very critical. But what is also important, and this has been a reflection here. And one of the things I'm very pleased, although the majority of the presenters were women, an awesome one, and most of them have contributed to our books. There are also some men there that contributed in very, very thoughtful way. So equally important is that many of our male colleagues are sure to be positively impacted as they read about the unique journeys honestly shared in the pages that Elizabeth and Soma and 50 other women leaders have done. My hope is, as I said, and there's just these two sentences, that even more men in the profession and engineering education to seriously reflect on how they can be more effective, engaged, and sensitive in terms of supporting women in their leadership roles, regardless of what culture they live in. To me, reinforced by the experience of the 8.5 hours together, it just reinforces that vision, and working and having the privilege of learning, of working with you on a continual basis. So it's a pleasure. Soma, you've done an awesome, passionate, not only are you a good engineer and intellectual, but you have a capacity to bring people together so they reflect intellectually and personally on their different journeys. You did a marvelous job in creating this last 8.5 hours here. Thank you. Peace be with you. Stay healthy, all of you and your families. Peace be with you.
Thank you, Hans. And thank you, Einar. Thank you, Elizabeth. And really good to see friends and make friends with the new friend like Einar. And I have met many new friends today, but this is a time to say bye for today. But before we finish, I want to thank Mihoko for really helping this to materialize. Sama Kamal, I think her last name is, and she has done a wonderful job. But our own Salma. But the most important person here is Aliki for me, because she with Sama and Mihoko, with me, with Hans, continuously, she worked day and night to make it a success. So Aliki, thank you so very much. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day, I think, Elizabeth, for you, and good night to everyone. And for Hans also, there is a little bit rest of the day left. Thank you so much. And I'm sure that in near future, we'll meet again and in person. It was a great conference. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. All the best. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.